To me, my X-Men. For this drawing, we aren't just fighting for the future of mutant kind, we're trying to get every member to sit still long enough for an epic Xavier school class photo. The X-Men have always been about family, and we'll learn about the team as we bring them together for this mutant-filled masterpiece. I'm Will Sliney, and over the last 15 years I've drawn over 100 comics for Marvel, and this is Marvel Illustrated. If there's one thing that screams comic books, it's the group shots. You can have your action poses like artist George Perez famously did with so many superheroes, or those dynamic battle sequences that Lionel Yu did for Secret Invasion, or powerful storytelling moments like Olivier Coipel did with House of M. My job today is to draw a class photo from Charles Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, a group better known to us as the X-Men. The group shot is the ultimate comic book power move. It's the greatest characters all in one image. It's the illustrated equivalent of this.
To me, my X-Men.
So I need to create a layout for our team of X-Men, not one where they're leaping into battle, but one that shows the heart and professional relationships of the team. Here's a layout where we would have all of our characters lined up with no real perspective changes. To either make things a little more interesting, I can either raise up the camera to add depth, or I can lower it down and move the characters closer or further away from the camera. These visual choices will allow me to have more chances to have characters on different levels, which I think is more interesting. We'll have ways to bring characters around on a journey, to hide and find more things within the page that will demand the viewer to come back for a second look. Choosing the layout is by far the most important part of the drawing. The choices I make here will affect the storytelling on the page. It's so important to work out the direction of your drawing. If this was a movie, this would be more than the storyboarding process. It would be the rehearsals, the discussions with the director of photography. This is what makes a good comic book artist. Putting storytelling first. The whole process of drawing this image will flow after this, but these are my most crucial artistic decisions. When people think of the X-Men, one name almost always comes to mind first: Wolverine. For Logan, we need a stocky build, short arms that are very hairy, and whenever we have him, I like to draw him in a hunched pose. Even in a class photo, I feel like he should always be ready to strike, as that feels more in character for him. Maybe we can find a reason in the pictures we draw to make him that little bit extra grumpy. Just give us an excuse for him to have a scowl. The story of Logan didn't start as the legendary mutant we know today. First appearing in 1974 as the Incredible Hulk number 180, the Wolverine was created by Len Wein, Roy Thomas, and artist John Romita Sr. Originally introduced as the Canadian government operative sent out to battle the Hulk, Wolverine quickly stood out thanks to his claws, healing factor, and brutal fighting style. But it was the relaunch of X-Men in giant-size X-Men number 1 that truly changed everything. There, Wolverine joined a new international team of mutants assembled by Professor X. For years, Wolverine's past remained one of Marvel's biggest mysteries. Readers only knew fragments: the mysterious Weapon X program, his metal skeleton bonded with adamantium, and hints of a long life filled with war and loss. In the 1980s, writer Chris Claremont and artist Frank Miller expanded the character dramatically in 1982's limited series titled Wolverine, exploring Logan's connection to Japan and his struggle between his animal instincts and his sense of honor. Decades later, Marvel finally revealed the story of his upbringing and origin, where we saw a sickly child whose mutant ability arrived in dramatic fashion. A story that confirmed that Logan was born one James Howlett in 19th century Canada. Today, Wolverine remains one of Marvel's most iconic characters. A warrior torn between beast and hero, constantly fighting to prove that beneath the claws, there's still a man. Let's draw Wolverine's cowl and use its shapes and lines to emphasize his fierce look. The brow is the most important part that I can work like a pair of angry eyebrows, but as long as it's so long and sweeping, we can portray that from almost any angle. These shapes can be tricky, but I break them down by taking them one semicircle at a time. His angry brow protrudes a lot. We can add in some dark shadows around the eyes and cheekbones, which will make it all feel a little more extreme. Then, as he's often just a tad angry, we can furrow that brow with lots of expression lines here. These lines here are seam lines, and really what they do is they add in a level of detail that make that suit feel purpose-made and professional, away from the older spandex look. Below the mask, any chance I get, I'll try to open up his mouth and show those ever so pointy teeth above a strong, wide chin. To draw the stubble, instead of just dotting in small lines wherever you feel like it, we can bring a balance and pattern to it, which makes it look more thoughtful. There we go. Looks like a nice guy. As the story of the X-Men has evolved, Storm has emerged more and more as a leader and a figure of power. I want to get across that regalness in our drawing as the once Queen of Wakanda flies at the fore of our drawing. Her costumes have always been amazing, and they allow us to draw on some sweeping and interesting lines, but it's her hairstyle that can be the most fun to draw. One of the most powerful mutants and influential characters in Marvel Comics history, Storm is literally a force of nature. Debuting in the legendary giant-sized X-Men #1 created by writer Len Wein and artist Dave Cockrum, Aurora Monroe, or Storm as she's known, is the daughter of an American photojournalist and a Kenyan princess. After her parents died in Cairo, she survived as a street thief before discovering her incredible mutant power, the ability to control the weather itself. Eventually, Aurora travelled across Africa, where her powers and compassion led local communities to worship her as a goddess. Her life changed when Professor X recruited her to join the X-Men, forming a new international team that included mutants from around the world. Under the long-running run of writer Chris Claremont, Storm evolved into one of the most complex characters in the X-Men mythos. She lost her powers, faced intense personal struggles, and ultimately proved her strength by defeating Cyclops in combat to become the leader of the X-Men. Storm's stories have explored identity, leadership, and power. She's ruled as the Queen of Wakanda while married to the Black Panther T'Challa, fought cosmic threats, treated as a living goddess by her people, and stood as a symbol of dignity and resilience. More than just a weather goddess, Storm represents the heart of the X-Men, a leader who believes deeply in protecting a world that often fears and hates mutants. It's time to draw some superpower effects. Drawing lightning is all about studying the shapes that real lightning takes and bringing it to the comic book page with our stylistic take. Lightning will have its core center line, which is thicker than the rest. Then we want to have it zigzag downwards as its intensity jolts out in different directions as it tries to reach the ground. It's that intensity that sparks out in thinner lines up and down the length of its core. We can show the point of impact on the ground with these lines that radiate out. Then I'll add in some debris that's thrown upwards and away from that point to add to the intensity. Jean Grey and Cyclops really put a new spin onto the phrase power couple as two of the most commanding mutants out there. Cyclops for his leadership skills, and Jean, well, for being the most dangerous and powerful force of near limitless cosmic abilities. For decades, Cyclops has been the strategic heart and disciplined leader of the X-Men. Cyclops and Jean first appeared in X-Men #1 created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Both were two of the original 5 X-Men recruited by Professor X. Cyclops' mutant ability allows him to fire powerful optic blasts from his eyes, energy so destructive that he must wear a special visor to control it. Orphaned after a plane crash separated him from his brother Alex, Scott grew up believing he'd no family. Xavier gave him a home, guidance, and the mission to protect a world that fears mutants. Cyclops quickly became the field leader of the X-Men, known for his tactical brilliance and unwavering dedication for Xavier's dream of peaceful coexistence between humans and mutants. Cyclops wears a ruby quartz visor to contain his optic blasts, but can unleash them with a touch of a button. As the visor starts with a thin slit for him to see through, I'll always start with it to make sure it sits correctly. Then we can build out the visor around it, connecting it to his forehead and indenting it at the bottom so that it sits on his nose. Then it connects onto another round shape at either side of the head. The casing of the visor is metallic, so to show this, let's add in lots of reflections from the world around it. Then comes the raw, powerful optic blast. The closer to the visor, the more energetic it should look, with more action lines bursting from it before it forms into the orderly and purposeful beam, a bit like old Slim himself. Few characters in comic book history has stories as epic and tragic as Jean Grey. Originally known as Marvel Girl, Jean possessed powerful telekinetic abilities, later revealed to include extraordinary telepathy as well. From the beginning, Jean was deeply connected to her teammates, especially Cyclops, who would become the love of her life. But Jean's destiny changed forever during the legendary Dark Phoenix saga, written by Chris Claremont and illustrated by John Byrne. After being exposed to cosmic forces, Jean became the Phoenix, a being of unimaginable power. But when that power corrupted her, she transformed into the Dark Phoenix, destroying an entire alien world. Realizing the danger she posed, Jean made the ultimate sacrifice, choosing death to save the universe. Although comics would later resurrect her many times, the Dark Phoenix story remains one of the most famous and influential arcs in superhero history. Jean Grey's legacy is one of power, sacrifice, and rebirth, a mutant whose story helped define the emotional depth of the X-Men. Maybe now we have a reason for Wolverine being a tad on the grumpy side. The guy's always had a thing for Jean. I think we all know the meme. Now it's time to draw two leaders that project and hold themselves in very different ways. I'll draw Magneto using his power to raise up some large metal girders into our background in a show of strength. Whereas for Charles Xavier, I'll want to get across his kindness and calmness and care for the others within the picture. At the center of the X-Men mythos is one of the greatest rivalries in comic book history, an ideological clash between Professor X and Magneto. Both characters debuted in X-Men #1 created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Professor Charles Xavier is one of the most powerful telepaths in the world. A brilliant geneticist and mutant himself, Xavier founded the X-Men and opened the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. His mission was simple but revolutionary. Train mutants to use their powers responsibly while proving that humans and mutants could live together in peace. But not everyone shared Xavier's optimism. Magneto, born Eric Lensher, believed humanity would never accept mutants. A survivor of the Holocaust, Magneto's traumatic past shaped his worldview with the ability to control magnetism and manipulate metal itself. He saw mutants not as a minority to protect, but as the next stage of human evolution. Where Xavier dreamed of coexistence, Magneto believed mutants had only one choice: dominate or be destroyed. For decades, their conflict defined the X-Men universe, yet their relationship is far more complicated than a simple hero and villain. In many stories, the two men share a deep respect, a tragic friendship, and the painful realization that they both want the same thing: a safe future for mutant kind. They simply disagree on how to achieve it. Now it's time to bring a bit of love to our drawing with everyone's favourite on-again, off-again couple, Rogue and Gambit. Instead of having them alongside each other, I can use their interactions to provide a bit more verticality to the image, bringing a bit of Shakespeare as he looks up at her, as if he's the Romeo to her Juliet. Few relationships in the X-Men universe are as iconic and complicated as the romance between Rogue and Gambit. Rogue first appeared in Avengers Annual number 10, created by writer Chris Claremont and artist Michael Golden. Originally, she wasn't a hero at all. Rogue debuted as a member of Mystique's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Her mutant power allowed her to absorb the memories, abilities, and life force of anyone she touched, but the power came at a devastating cost. Physical contact could permanently harm others. During a battle with Carol Danvers, known then as Ms. Marvel, Rogue permanently absorbed many of her powers, including super strength and flight. Haunted by guilt, Rogue eventually turned to Professor X and joined the X-Men in search of redemption. Years later, the team gained a new recruit, Gambit, who debuted in Uncanny X-Men number 266, created by Chris Claremont and artist Jim Lee. Remy LeBeau, a charming thief from New Orleans, possessed the ability to charge objects with kinetic energy, famously turning playing cards into explosive weapons. Rogue and Gambit quickly developed a powerful attraction, But Rogue's inability to touch anyone without harming them made their relationship painfully complicated. Despite the obstacles, betrayals, and years of on-again, off-again romance, their bond endured. In 2018, after decades of storytelling, Rogue and Gambit finally married, cementing one of the most beloved love stories in X-Men history. Unlike Rogue and Gambit, I want Kitty Pryde, Colossus, and Lockheed all to physically interact with each other. A fun way to do that with Peter's strength is to have Kitty sit up on top of his shoulders with Lockheed perched up on top of hers. Few relationships in the X-Men history captured the spirit of the team quite like the bond between Kitty Pryde, Colossus, and Kitty's tiny dragon companion, Lockheed. Kitty Pryde first appeared in Uncanny X-Men issue 129, created by writer Chris Claremont, again, and artist John Byrne. From Chicago, Kitty possessed the ability to phase through solid matter, allowing her to walk through walls, disrupt electronics, and become nearly impossible to touch. Soon after arriving at the X-Mansion, Kitty formed a close friendship with Colossus, the gentle Russian mutant who can transform his body into nearly indestructible organic steel. Despite his immense strength, Pyotr Rasputin is known for his kindness and artistic nature. Their relationship quickly became one of the most memorable romances in X-Men comics, portraying two heroes fighting alongside the team. During an adventure in space with the alien race known as the Brood, Kitty also gained an unusual companion, Lockheed, a small but intelligent alien dragon who became her loyal partner. Over the years, Kitty Pryde became one of the team's most respected leaders, while her bond with Colossus and Lockheed remained a beloved part of X-Men history. Together, they represent one of the most heartfelt corners of the mutant world. Among the X-Men, Nightcrawler stands out not just for his appearance, but for his heart. Nightcrawler first appeared in Giant Size X-Men issue 1, created by writer Len Wein and artist Dave Cockrum. Born Kurt Wagner in Germany, Nightcrawler's blue skin, yellow eyes, and pointed, almost demonic tail made people fear him from birth. But despite his frightening appearance, Kurt grew up to be one of the kindest and most optimistic members of the X-Men. Raised in a traveling circus, he discovered his mutant ability to teleport instantly through clouds of sulfur-smelling smoke. When Professor X recruited him, Nightcrawler joined a new global team alongside characters like Storm and Wolverine. His swashbuckling personality, acrobatic combat style, and famous sound effect of BAMF made him a fan favorite for decades. Nightcrawler embodies one of the X-Men's central ideas that true heroism comes from the character, not appearance. Born in a dystopian future in Earth 1191, where mutants are hunted to the brink of extinction, Lucas Bishop is a soldier shaped by war, loss, and survival. Created by comic book artist Whilce Portacio and debuting in Uncanny X-Men 282 in 1991. Bishop was raised in an internment camp and literally branded with an M for mutant. He grew up witnessing the brutality of humanity's fear of mutants. Those harsh realities forged him into a relentless protector, determined to change the past and prevent his future from ever happening. Bishop possesses a unique and formidable mutant ability. He can absorb all forms of energy, whether kinetic, thermal, or even certain types of radiation, and redirect it as powerful concussive blasts. This makes him especially dangerous in combat, turning his enemy's strength into his own advantage. Traveling back in time, Bishop joins the X-Men, bringing with him the knowledge of a dark future and the determination to stop it. Jubilee became one of the most recognizable young X-Men of the 1990s, especially for an entire generation of fans. Jubilee first appeared in Uncanny X-Men number 244, created by writer Chris Claremont and artist Mark Silvestri. Born Jubilation Lee in Beverly Hills, Jubilee was a teenage mutant whose powers allowed her to generate explosive bursts of colorful energy, essentially mutant fireworks. After losing her parents, Jubilee did what any 90s kid would do and hid inside a shopping mall, secretly living amongst the stores until she encountered the X-Men. She quickly formed a close bond with Wolverine, who became a mentor and protective older brother figure. Through it all, Jubilee has remained a symbol of youthful energy, resilience, and the idea that even the youngest mutants can grow into true heroes. I know I've been giving Wolverine a little bit of stick here while drawing the image, but in fairness to him, he's really taken on the fatherly figure role a few times over the years with Jubilee and Kitty. I guess he does have a soft side. Originally, Beast looked very different from the blue furry mutant fans recognise today. Early stories portrayed Hank as a large but still human looking mutant with incredible agility and strength and oversized hands and feet. But everything changed in the 1970s. While working as a genetic researcher, Hank experimented on himself in an attempt to temporarily suppress his mutation. Instead, the experiment permanently transformed him into a blue, furry creature with enhanced animalistic features. Despite his monstrous appearance, Beast remained one of the most intelligent minds in the Marvel Universe. His love of literature, science, and philosophy made him a unique voice within the X-Men. Over the decades, Beast has served as an X-Men, an Avenger, a mentor to younger mutants, and, well, as time went on during the X-Men's Krakoan era, Beast's sinister side blossomed, leading X-Force into some pretty dark things. Thankfully, with a little help from his friends, the more bubbly, bouncing Beast bounded back onto the scene. Problem solved, no questions asked. In the early days of the X-Men, Bobby was the youngest member of the original team. His mutant power allowed him to generate ice and lower temperatures, often covering his body in a snow-like form. But over the decades, writers gradually revealed that Bobby's powers were far more impressive than they first appeared. Instead of simply creating ice, Iceman can control temperature and moisture at a molecular level, allowing him to create massive ice structures, freeze entire environments, and even reconstruct his body from water vapor. Stories throughout the 1990s and 2000s explored Bobby's struggle with confidence and identity as he slowly realized he'd been subconsciously holding back his own potential. From jokester to Omega-level powerhouse, Iceman's journey reflects one of the core ideas behind the X-Men, discovering and embracing who you truly are. That's all the X-Men I can fit in here, so with a bit of inking magic, here is our final drawn piece. And that's all the characters and history of the piece covered. Next, the best part, our colorist Rochelle Rosenberg will add her magic to the piece and give us our final Marvel Illustrated X-Men class photo in our final revealed piece. Thanks for following along to the creation of this X-Men class photo. We'll see you on the next episode of Marvel Illustrated. Make sure you watch Marvel Animation's X-Men 97. Seasons 1 and 2 are now streaming only on Disney+. Who's ready for Spidey?